like to welcome everybody once again to the Buffalo History Channel. Thanks so much for joining me. It's been, I'm sure you guys have enjoyed our summer seasons. We're now into, of course, we're now into our fall season. So there's a brand new line of content, and this one is going to be a little different, something brand new. Because normally you've been watching the platform. We've highlighted a lot of people from the past, and every now and then I kind of like to take a little bit more time out to introduce you to some of the new faces, some of the members of the newer generations of Buffalo. And I have one with me today. Actually, one that's become a real favorite of mine. You know her today as the poet laureate, Buffalo's very first poet laureate. Now, when I first heard about her, they called her the poet laureate of Juneteenth on Jefferson Avenue. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that, because I remember when I first heard that, I was like, oh, hey, this person. Kind of why I wore this shirt, and it's somewhat in tribute to that. But first of all, let me welcome to the Buffalo History Channel, poet laureate, Buffalo's very first poet laureate, Jillian Hanesworth. Welcome to the Buffalo History Channel.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Now, I was telling you off camera that I first came to know about you. It was in 2020, and
yes.
This was in the wake of the George Floyd killing, and these uprisings were happening all across the country. It even, surprisingly to me, hit Buffalo. Mm-hmm. And I saw a number of young activists. I think they were called the Progressive Movement or something like that. They were emerging all across the area. And I have to say, as someone who relocated and was watching it on social media, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of it got it was somewhat entertaining, but it was also refreshing.
Yeah.
To see, a younger generation, keep Buffalo on their toes and speak out against injustices. So can you share some of before we get into your poetry, can you share some of the memories of that whole movement?
Yeah, I mean, so the summer of 2020, obviously we were going through like COVID, and that kind of felt like it came out of nowhere and just hit us like a ton of bricks. But after seeing the footage of George Floyd, I think so many of us were like, man, you're not about to keep telling me that people who look like me are going to keep getting killed or abused, over prosecuted, over prison, over police, just because what we look like. Like, absolutely not. So I think a lot of us were genuinely just fed up. Like, there's this song I like, and the rapper says, "I'm not woke, I'm just tired." And yes, that's what it is. It's like, we're not trying to just be these like social justice warriors all of a sudden. Like, we're tired. And a lot of these issues that we're seeing happening around the country, they're present right here in our own backyard. We know that in Buffalo, especially Black and Latino communities are more susceptible to police checkpoints, which are unconstitutional. We know that in Buffalo, we see things like the budget for workforce development go down, while the police are getting millions of dollars additionally every single year. So when you look at a city where over half the population is Black, 85% of that population lives in one community, and there's been no economic development in 30 years. I'm 30. So in my entire lifetime for Black people, it's like, yeah, when we see everybody turning up, we're turning up too, because we have the issues here too. And I think a lot of us just stops waiting for someone to lead us, and we're just like, let's just go, let's just get out here and make our voices known too. Let's air out our discrepancies as well, because we have them.
Yeah, because when I'm looking at that whole thing, and I remember seeing the very first like demonstration they had in front of City Hall, And when I first looked at it, I mean, I've been to enough demonstrations when I was living there, and
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
looked at it, I didn't think nothing of it when I saw it.
Hmm.
And then maybe I think maybe later on in the towards the evening, I log back on Facebook, and then I'm seeing smoke, and I'm seeing all kinds of commotion going. Like, what in the
Yeah.
world? And then it comes across the wire that somebody tried to firebomb City Hall. I almost fell out of my chair. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
This was definitely something new. And I kind of have to say, as a photographer and filmmaker, I'm seeing all the stuff because that thing lasted like almost throughout the summer, almost into the fall.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now, as a photographer and filmmaker, there was a part of me that was just like, I should have been there
I
to
need to be
crumple that.
there.
And
Yeah.
I incidentally, I would have been there, but if you remember, they also had the travel ban going on,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
then
Things were
my
shut down all
yeah
over the
yeah
place.
my right when I was getting ready the day before I was getting ready to come, my dad told me, man, just stay off the road, just stay back there in DC. And it's like, all right.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
they were turning up out here too.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I was also struck by when I was going down to DC, and when they had where they had the whole Black Lives Matter Boulevard and everything, they have
Yeah.
demonstrations out there. I tell people the one thing I was struck by was there was a whole lot of people out. It was mostly led by people that I didn't see a lot of us out there. There was
Hmm.
and I'm kind of looking around, and I'm like, okay, so this is kind of going across different areas,
Yeah.
and certainly there's other opinions that have been expressed about that.
Hmm.
That's just something
Yeah.
with what I saw.
Yeah, when I first like really got active in the like movement community, I want to
Mm-hmm.
say it was 2017 that I really
Okay.
was like, all right, let me figure out how to use my voice. Because I went to Fredonia, which is a predominantly white
Mm-hmm.
college, after growing up in the Kensington and Bailey area. So it was culture shock. And I
Yeah.
really learned how to be unapologetic about who I am by going there. So when I got back, I just worked for a while, I was still in my fun phase. um, and then yeah, in 2017, I'm like, all right, let me be a little bit more serious about this. But one thing that I definitely always notice is that when we are protesting and things like that, we do often see more white people than black people. Um, and I remember at first that used to bother me. Like I would be like, "Are you kidding
Right.
me? Like, come on now, black people,
I had that
where y'all
feeling too.
at? Show up."
I saw some fraternity brothers out there in DC, and I said,
Hmm.
and they looked at me. Oh, we literally had the same reaction to each other. Like,
Yeah,
oh, there we go. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah.
But and now that I'm like really operating in this space, I see it so differently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Black people, we are often the ones that are like stuck in that survival mode, like perpetually, like for our entire lives. Um, we can't always ask black people to survive the system, speak out about the system, um, to work within systems to help change them, to also be the ones that come out and march about it. Like, no, race, that's white people's fight. Like y'all did this. Y'all benefit from it. This is yours. So yeah, when something happens that's just blatantly racist and we're out in the streets, I want to see white people out there because this is your formula. So this is your fight. Um, so I think we think about what our ancestors did and how they were able to turn out in thousands, and how they were like hosed and attacked by dogs, but they still showed up. And we forget sometimes that even then they were fighting a war that they should not have had to fight. Like it was white people. Like y'all get out and fight this. And when white people ask me, what's my role in helping to end racism? It's like ending racism. Like all of it is your role. It's yours. Like congratulations. I got it for you. I'll put it in a nice bag, but it's yours. So yeah, I need to see you show up. And if I see a black man die with a police officer's knee to his neck, and I go out and I'm marching, I don't only want to see Black people. Like, we should not always have to be the ones that are like, hey, look what's happening to us. The people who are positively impacted by the same system that we're negatively impacted by, y'all need to be the ones that are showing out, looking, being like, look what's going on. So yeah, I always love when it's us there because it just is a different vibe.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel like white people, allies, like, you got a responsibility to show up. So I need to see you out there too.
Absolutely. Let's move over to poetry. What was it
Yes.
that, what was, long before you became a poet laureate, Buffalo's first poet laureate, what was it that got you into poetry?
So I am from a very musical family. I grew up singing, went to high school, went to performing arts for singing, got into college for singing. So I actually wrote songs before I wrote poetry. And even as a little kid, like, I would be standing in the bathroom while my mom was putting her makeup on for work or for church or anything, and I would be teaching her these songs that I wrote, um, expecting that she would sing them like in church. They weren't good songs, so she never sang them anywhere. um, but yeah, it started with songs, and then once I realized that poetry is the foundation of it all, of songs and raps and all that, I just started writing, and instead of singing it, I would just say it. And I'm like, I really like this. Like, this is a vibe. Um, so I was 7 when I first started writing poetry and like reading my poetry at churches and nursing homes and all kinds of places like that. But I didn't really take it seriously until that 2017 kind of moment where I really felt activated to be about something in the community. But yeah, it was songs first, and then it became poetry. And now it's mainly poetry. Now I don't write too many songs unless I'm specifically asked to.
Okay. Now, before we get to your main title, I remember when I first began to know about you, as I said earlier, you were labeled as the poet laureate of Juneteenth on Jefferson Avenue, and as a
Yeah.
Jefferson Avenue legacy, I was like, oh, this is definitely somebody I gotta meet. I mean, I know you've told me, but can you tell our audience how that whole title came about and who gave you that title?
Yeah, so it was DeWitt Lee.
Yes.
Um, so there was like the Juneteenth on Jefferson events that were happening. It was like every Saturday, and I would just come out and like sell merch or perform. And DeWitt, he knew that I was in this process of trying to petition the city to establish a poet laureate role. Um, that process took about 2 years for me to get the city to just do it,
Okay.
or to let me. I learned how to write resolutions, so to let me do it. So he was like, you know what, like, I don't care how long they're taking, you're going to be our poet laureate. Like, you're always out here, we know you, we trust you, you speak for us. So I can't make you the poet laureate of Buffalo, but you're going to be the poet laureate of Juneteenth on Jefferson. So he gave me the title, and it was definitely an honor because, to be given any sort of accolade by your own community for the
Yes.
work that you do always means so much more than by somebody from outside of the community saying that I'm capable of doing it. So yeah, I'll always appreciate and treasure that. I still have a little Juneteenth on Jefferson Poet Laureate certificate, and I'm hoping that he keeps that going and every
Yeah.
year picks a new one.
Absolutely.
It can't be me all the time.
Right.
But we have so many amazing writers and voices in our city, so I'm hoping that it sustains.
And I still haven't forgotten. I'm gonna one of the I'm gonna get with you and have you do a, because I got a lot of footage of Juneteenth on Jefferson. It'd be great to have you do a poem over some of that footage. So when you
Yeah,
became
definitely.
So for our audience that doesn't know, what exactly is a poet laureate?
Yeah, so a poet laureate is the poet who has like reached the highest level of esteem in a certain region. Every poet laureate has a different take on the role. um every poet laureate role is actually written very differently. So our poet laureate in Buffalo is supposed to be someone who uses poetry to represent something, whether it's the people, whether it's the needs of the people, whether it's um purely geography, whether it's the food. Like the poet laureates might all have a different angle and a different way to look at it. um, but it's someone who represents our city and the voice of our city based in this specific area that they're going to focus in. Of course, my area is justice. I am an activist first, a community organizer first, and my poetry is a tool for my organizing. So when I was going to the council members to try to get them to establish the role, that's how I pitched it. Like, we can really find people in the community that are about something and who are writers, and give them a platform to help uplift the voices of the community using poetry. So I'm hoping that that is what this role will continue to do, and the purpose of this role will continue to be, even beyond me. Because again, I'm the first, but I won't and I can't be the only one, because that's not how you sustain it. Um, so yeah, that's me. But the next poet laureate might actually have a completely different answer. And I think that's the beauty of it.
So when did it actually become official after petitioning this city?
So for me, it became official in March of 2021. So technically, the poet laureate is supposed to have 2 years on their term. For me, it's lasting one extra year. Just because when I became the poet laureate, we still weren't having like city events in person yet,
Mhm.
and the poet laureate is supposed to be at all city events.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, once we have a new common council and a new energy in City Hall, they should be picking a new poet laureate not long after.
Okay, so since becoming the poet laureate,
Mhm.
what talk about some of the activities that you've been able to do in Buffalo up to at least up
Yeah,
to this point?
so I mean, I've done a lot of like city events, obviously Juneteenth, all of the events associated with the Juneteenth committee. So like Ma'afa and Kwanzaa. Um, I've done keynotes for city programs and for high schools and charter schools around the city. Um, I've actually it's really funny because um, people often don't separate like my poetry career from me being the poet laureate. So like everything that I do has kind of fallen under the umbrella of me being the poet laureate.
Mhm.
So since becoming the poet laureate, I've actually been able to leave my job and only focus on poetry. Right now, the poet laureate role is not a paid role. It's not a stipend role. I'm hoping that for the next person it will be. Um, but I think just kind of having that title has kind of really helped me get opportunities with, the bills, and to be able to really use my voice after May 14th,
Yes,
um at Tops, and really be able to represent the community that way. So I
and for
think the title has definitely opened a lot of doors, and I'm hoping that it those doors again stay open for the poet laureate after me.
and certainly we don't want to I don't want to let this go by without acknowledging May 14th. And
Yeah.
we all know what happened at that by now. And one of the significant things that I know you participated in was after they rebuilt and remodeled the
Hmm.
supermarket. you can go in there and there is a wall with your poetry on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is so surreal. I've only been in there once to see it. And that was the day before the grocery store reopened. We all still have our thing when it comes to just how we're coping with everything that happened at Top. So I don't go in there, but I'm honored that I was tasked with creating a poem for that. When they called me, I remember after getting off the phone with the manager at Tops, I called my mom and I was crying, like I was bawling. And she's like, why are you so upset? Like that's such an honor that they're asking you to do that. And I'm like, it's not fair. Like, it's not fair. Like, this is not, when I said I wanted to be a writer, when I decided to try to be a poet, this is not what I thought I was going to have to do, like, to use my gift on. I'm like, I can't say anything to make everybody feel better. Sometimes we don't all need to feel better. Sometimes we need to just feel what it is. So I felt very overwhelmed by it. I felt like it was too tall of a task for me. And luckily, what I ended up coming up with, the poem Water, um, they really loved, and the families loved it, and the employees at Tops loved it. And yeah, but I still think back at that, and it's still very hard to even think about all of the opportunities that I've gotten since May 14th
Right.
because of May 14th. It's like
Yeah.
nobody wants to feel like their career was affected positively by something so painful.
Right.
So I still definitely struggle a lot with everything that happened around May 14th, but I'll always be honored. My nephews went and saw the plaque inside
Right.
Tops, and they were so proud. So
yeah.
if anything, my family's really proud.
Yeah. So who've been some of your inspirations and influences in doing poetry?
Yeah, so of course I love Celeste Tisdale. I feel like how can you not being a Buffalo writer? Gil Scott Heron is The Revolution Will Not Be Televised
Yes.
is one of my favorite poems of all time. And
Absolutely.
James Baldwin was just so unapologetic and so like straight up with how he felt in his perspective, and his lifestyle really mirrored his beliefs. And I feel like that's important as an artist. He didn't believe in separating the artist from the art. He believed that your art is a manifestation of who you are on the inside, and I do too. So I really follow James Baldwin, and then Andre 3000, J. Cole, like these rappers, they are my favorite poets, and that's who I get my writing style from rappers. So yeah, there's a lot of different people who inspire me, but it's definitely Andre 3000, J. Cole, Lauryn Hill are my top three.
Okay. So what's the what are the future plans for you?
Well, I'm hoping to come out with a EP. A lot of people are always like, I want to be able to listen to your work, aside from when you're performing it. So hopefully we'll be putting something out this year. I hope to travel more, um, to help get find the new poet laureate, just at least get the system in place for finding the next poet laureate. Um, and just writing, I'm doing more and more lectures and speeches that are not poetry. So just
Mhm.
getting more comfortable stepping in that space and feeling like I belong there. And then of course I do a lot of literacy work. So I run Buffalo Books. Um, I build library boxes and put them around the east side. So we have about 30 something right now. I keep them stocked. I also do pop-up free bookstores.
Okay.
Um, So I'm hoping over the winter to work on a better mechanism to not only make the pop-ups a little bit more like fancy, but to also create a system where other entrepreneurs can do their own pop-ups for their own merchandise or books or whatever. So yeah, a lot of stuff that I'm always working on. I'm a busybody, so I'm always doing a lot.
Okay, so what would you say to someone that wants to, that would aspire to get into poetry, a young person that's trying to get into poetry right now, or anybody that was like wants to be the new poet laureate?
Yeah, so my first thing that I always say, there's no such thing as an aspiring poet. If
Okay.
you write poetry, you are a poet.
Okay.
Um, do not compare yourself to anyone. I am from one of the poorest communities in the city. I'm dyslexic. I was told that I couldn't even go to college, let alone finish college. My college graduation day was my eviction day from my apartment. Like life is gonna always be set up to make it a lot harder for us. Um, but don't aspire to do it, just do it. Write poetry. If you share it on Facebook and you get one like, you got one fan. And so don't think about what you're not getting, think about what you are, and keep going.
Mhm.
I think it's really important that we determine what success means for us individually so that we don't compare ourselves to other people. Um, so figure out what that means, write it down, and then put your blinders on and go for it. And yeah, I think that would be my advice.
Okay. Well, is closing, is there a particular poem in your repertoire that you'd like to share with the audience?
Sure. I can share a poem. Um, okay, this is a short poem. It's called Immune, and I like this
Okay.
one a lot.
Okay.
All right. I think I'm immune to Earth's sorrows. Because when you're trying to be the moon, you're not concerned about tomorrow, not praying that you feel the sun's rays on your face. First place winners will no longer be the hottest. They'll be the most modest, ones whose light draws no applause, heat that causes for no pause. Illuminate your every whim, but I could never ever burn you, not even if I yearn to. I just don't have it in me. I have learned to tread water so not to drown in others' tears. I have learned to hide myself so not to show off all my fears or lack thereof, treating trauma just like drama, and all drama turns me off, so off I stay in the distance, mimicking acts of those around me. If they cry, I can cry too, but not because I feel like crying, identifying with the acts more than I recognize the why, manifesting the emotions that don't and won't exist inside. My head's been doing it for so long that my heart, it got in line and played its role, head to lead and heart to follow or to borrow. I think I'm immune to Earth's sorrows.
Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, you have just heard the words of Buffalo's first poet laureate, Jillian Hanesworth. It was an honor to have had you on the Buffalo History Channel.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor for me.
Absolutely.